What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Honest Tattooer Podcast. My name is Jon Mesa, and I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Truiano.
Hey, how you doing?
And our very special guest. But before, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Tattoo Smart, Tattoo Pro, and Steadfast Tattoo Supplies. And if you want to support the podcast, make sure that you visit our sponsors. It really means a lot. And make sure that you check out our Patreon. And don't forget to like this video. And on to our guest. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
So, for those who don't know you, let them know your name, where you're from, how long you've been tattooing, and what kind of tattoos you like to do.
My name is Adam Harmon, and I currently live in New Haven, Connecticut. I tattoo at Hope Gallery Tattoo in New Haven. I've been tattooing full-time since 2011. I started apprenticing in 2003, and apprenticed from 2000, kind of part-time work and apprentice work from 2003 till 2008, and then took a little break, and then picked it up again full-time in 2011.
That's still a long apprenticeship.
Yeah.
It was with two different guys, with like I started with a guy and then moved and then kind of had to put in that like 6 months of just showing up every day until he said, okay, I can show you some stuff, and then kind of finished off apprenticing with him essentially.
It's like transferring colleges, but your credits don't transfer.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to start all over again.
Taking Algebra 1. Ironically, I took Algebra 1 5 times because I went to 5 different schools.
It sucks.
But when it comes to tattooing, I'm a big fan of like color work in general. I do a lot of, when I get the chance, do a lot of American traditional, and I really like cartoons, old cartoons from the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Cool.
Are kind of my big jam.
So there's like so I worked at this tattoo shop, which you're wearing the shirt today. Shout out to my homies at Big Joe's Tattooing. There was this guy Neil that used to get tattooed there, and he had his whole tattoo collection is like old school, like 60s, 70s cartoons, like Hanna-Barbera era, like.
Have I seen that guy online? I saw a guy online who he had almost like a bodysuit of 70s cartoons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've seen that for sure.
So he used to be the shop guy. He used to be the front guy
at
Big Joe's for some time. Yeah. But like, yeah, he had like this crazy collection of all of these cartoon characters. And some of them I'm like, as when you saw them as tattoos, I'm like, man, these make great tattoos, because the way that these things are like drawn and designed, they're just so bold, like just great color choices. They just make great tattoo designs.
And my favorite part about tattooing them is trying to make them still look like the cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
You see it a lot with like Disney cartoons where people do a tattoo of it and you're like, that's a decent tattoo. It's a terrible Disney rendition because your line weights are all wrong.
Yeah.
Like the color blending and different things. It's just like you tattooed it fine, but it doesn't look like the Disney reference anymore. Yeah. So that's the big one. So that's what when I'm sitting down to do a cartoon tattoo, that's sort of what I like to focus on, is making sure they look like they came from the cartoons.
Yeah. So you keep it flat and everything.
I tend to do a little bit more blended colors, especially with like a Hanna-Barbera or something. I'll blend the colors, but line weights are the most important thing.
Right.
Like they had such, when you really look at cartoons, they had very definite, like different line weights that kind of, Warner Brothers is different from a Hanna-Barbera, and even, from different eras, you can kind of tell different line weights. And then Disney's big on color lines, which is what makes them tough to tattoo.
Did you see that? Disney's toying around with the idea of doing a new hand-drawn, like all hand-drawn movie to kind of bring back that feeling, get away from the CGI stuff.
I would love to see that.
That would be cool.
Did you ever watch Akira?
No.
So Akira, did you ever watch Akira?
I haven't sat down to watch it.
Man, I can't believe you guys have.
I mean, I know the artwork.
Right.
But the artwork's incredible.
Yeah.
Now think of all of that being done with like hand-drawn. Like it's just so over the top.
But it was.
And it's like, yeah, it's just so incredible, so inspiring. You're like, wow, they drew this much. And it's like the most wild animations. I would love to see Disney push animation like, and like think about how old Akira is. Like right now, they could do something crazy, I feel.
So, I mean, this is kind of going off on a tangent now, but there's a video. I watched it on YouTube, but I'm sure it's on Disney Plus also. It's the 100th anniversary of the Disney Animation Studio. And the video is like all the characters kind of come into life within the animation studio, and they're all getting ready to take their 100-year anniversary photo.
Okay.
So all of the characters that have ever been designed they got redrawn and reanimated for this 8-minute video, and they're all interacting with one another, and they all get together and they take this photo for their 100-year anniversary. And when I was watching that, because I saw that the algorithm started pushing like all these other Disney animation videos and, you know, behind the scene tours and all that. And there was this one video that they were showing this guy drawing Genie from Aladdin. And he's been in the animation studio with Disney for years and years and years. And they're kind of interviewing him as he's drawing Genie. And he keeps flipping back and forth from like his layer that he's got to the layer underneath, which is barely different than what he's drawing. And you can see like the slight changes. And it's taking him maybe like 4 minutes to draw Genie, just the head.
Yeah.
And then like he's changing the expression and everything. But it's amazing to think that just between the 2 pages that he's going back and forth, that like that little bit of change,
Tiniest.
4 minutes per drawing, which is fast if you think about it. Like,
yeah,
I can't draw Genie in 4 minutes or anything, but how many of those does he have to draw just to make a 5 minute, and then to make a whole 2 hour long movie?
Man,
it's crazy.
It's so crazy.
It's so crazy.
They got those guys like at various parts in Disney and at Disney Springs, like they have artists there that will do a sketch on request and sell it to you, which is pretty cool.
It's so awesome.
So
that's badass. I mean, that's, you know, when I was a little kid and I went to Disney and I got that little, you get that tour, you get to see a little bit of like the studios and the people where they would draw. That's what made me like fall in love with like, oh man, I want to draw cartoons.
Yeah.
You know?
it is the sort of stuff. And like, if I hadn't gotten into tattooing and I totally randomly fell into tattooing, I would have liked to pursue something like that. But it was the weirdest sort of pipe dream for any sort of art from where I grew up. So I grew up in South Dakota, a little town in the middle of South Dakota. And South Dakota has like such a strange attitude towards any sort of arts, you know, and whatnot. Like I always say South Dakota has an artist. His name is Terry Redlin. And until he dies, they don't need another one. So they're not big on like any sort of encouraging anything like that. So when you say, "Oh, man, I'd like to go work for Disney," they sort of pat you on the head and say, "Oh, that's a nice dream," and then send you on your way and say, "Maybe you should learn into, you know, sell something." Or
yeah, that was kind of the reaction I got when I was applying to go to college. Maybe I was even my first year of college. I was working an office job also. And I was sitting next to this older woman and she asked me what I was going to school for. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to school for art. I'm going to be an illustrator." And she goes, "Oh, well, I guess that's okay." I'm like, "No, yeah, it's okay."
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. It's like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you end up working with Joe?
Working with Joe was really by happenstance. I moved from South Dakota in 2008 to Salem, Massachusetts, and I was working a little office job in Boston. I kind of put tattooing on the back burner because after almost 5 years of doing apprentice level stuff and whatnot, I was a little burnt out on it. And then I started tattooing again in 2011, tattooed in Salem from 2011 to 2016, moved down to Connecticut. My mom is from Connecticut. My dad's from South Dakota. My mom's from Connecticut. And so they were living in Connecticut at the time. And so I kind of crashed at their place for a little while and then just sort of picked up a tattooing job. I worked at like 3 shops in like 5 months because it started at one and it was like, oh, we're too slow to have another artist. And went to another one and worked with that guy for a while, and it was a great shop, but it was like a solo shop. And people would come in and be like, "Where's Chris?" And he'd be like, "Oh, you know, either he's busy or he wasn't there." And he'd be like, "Adam's here to tattoo." And they were like, "No, we'll just wait for Chris."
Wait for you.
Yeah. And so after being at his shop and not really working for a while, I got the opportunity to work at another shop down in West Haven, Connecticut, and that was going great. And my lady friend has been getting tattooed by Eric Merrill at Oak Gallery, so she was 18. And so she had an appointment with Eric, and Eric said something to her about Joe saying something to him about, you know, whatever, maybe needing somebody else in the shop and this and that. And that was, you know, that's like upper level, like major league tattooing in my mind. I'm very much like a street shop guy. I don't do anything of note. I'll do anything well, but I won't do anything that people come to me specifically for, you know? So I was like, oh, you know, that would be interesting. So I went and talked with him just to see if you know, the game of telephone wasn't misinterpreting something.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, you know, you can come hang out, whatever. And I had been at Hope from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when I was up in Salem, I was submitting art, you know, for art shows. They're doing a Star Wars show. I send them down a flash sheet of Star Wars stuff and go down and check it out. And,
Cool.
And when in I don't know what it was, 2018 maybe, they did Harry Potter theme show that Tim Harris had put on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, can I put a piece of art in the Harry Potter show? And they were like, oh yeah. So I was around a lot and, you know, always tried to like just say, hey, I have beaten down my social anxiety by forcing myself to talk to people and introduce myself when I go places.
Yeah.
And so I was one of them things where it's just like, I was happy that Joe knew my name.
Hey, I'm Russ Abbott. I am the founder of Tattoo Smart. I've also been tattooing for over 25 years. I use digital design tools in my tattoo process every day. And in this case, this video is going to explain a new product that I just created called the washi set. Now, the washi set is 17 handmade papers from Japan that I photographed and then turned into paper texture backgrounds, which you can use in Procreate. It also includes 21 different brushes that were designed for using with these papers, or it could be used with any background that you choose. As always, if you're interested in purchasing this or any of our other products, you can get them at tattoosmart.com.
First time I spoke with Joe, first time I said this on his podcast, but the first time I ever met him in person was at Star Wars show. I was getting tattooed in his room by Rodney Raines. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, Joe, what's up? How I tattoo up in Salem, Massachusetts. And he was just like, Salem, Massachusetts. Let me tell you about Salem, Massachusetts. He's telling this story about how he tried to open a shop there. They hauled him in front of the Board of Health, and they basically called him a scumbag and said that if he tried to open a shop in Salem, he was going to bring drunks and degenerates and all sorts of people to town. And he's telling me the story, and he's very Joe fashion, getting angrier and angrier. He's got this machine in his hand. He's just flailing this machine around. The guy he's tattooing is just sitting there, just like ah. And he gets done telling his whole story. I said, you know what? He goes, I fucking hope somebody opens a shop in this town, fucks up all your kids. And then he goes, I'm out. And he just walks away. He's telling the story. And I was just like, okay. I said, well.
And then fast forward a couple of years, Kelly opened up shop.
Right. Yeah. Well, my only response to Joe was like, I think our shop's okay. Bad mouthing all the shops in Salem. I had to tell him I was working at one. But
that's so funny.
Yeah. Then Kelly Doty opened a shop there a few years later, and she was open about a year right before I left. So yeah. And anyway, so after talking with Joe, he was like, oh yeah, if you want to come over here, we'll give it a go. And I was like, all right. So I had to talk with the guys that I was working with currently, and that was the best leaving a shop, because every time had left a shop before, I was either like, okay, you got to go, or it was like, I'm leaving town. You know? So this was like the first time that really first time that I had to say, listen, I'm just going up the street. I hope that's all right. They were understandable about the whole thing. So it was good. And yeah, it just, I don't know. I still wonder sometimes how I've been working with Joe, but it's been great. So
that's awesome.
That shop that you're in right now with Joe is probably one of the most beautiful shops I've ever seen.
It's a great shop. Yeah.
It's great. You can be in there for, a couple hours and probably not see everything.
Yeah. There's
so much to see. Like that's the thing when you like get out of the city. Like one thing that I wish it's so spread out, right? So once everybody's in their rooms, it's like, you're not going to connect unless you leave.
And from the street, it doesn't look like that.
It's huge. It's huge. There's so much space.
Kind of goes back into the lot like that. And what I like, Joe especially, but pretty much everybody is always willing to say, hey, so I always encourage people walk in and they walk in the front and they stand over by the bar and by the front desk and they're just like, this is cool. And I'm just like,
Walk around.
Walk around. Say, stick a room, because
No,
people
that's
aren't
great.
going to come out of the room to say hello to you, but if you go into the room and say, hey, they'll talk to
They'll
you.
talk.
Yeah.
So, it's that's the nice thing about that.
I could see that being a little discouraging, though, like being someone off the street who doesn't particularly know the artist in their room. It might feel a little awkward. Just pop your head in there, say what's up.
That I think that because everybody's room is sort of set up the way that they like and with the art that they like, it's almost easier to stop into a room than it is to look at a portfolio to like get a sense of who the tattooer is. If you're just wandering in randomly thinking, oh, I wanted to get a tattoo or whatever. And that's, that's not always the case. People who stop in randomly are there because they found out Joe works there. This is Joe's shop, and they're tattoo aficionados or tattooers from wherever, and they're like, oh, we had to
Check it out.
make a journey and say hey to Joe.
Yeah.
Or they're just they tend to be more like art people when it comes to their tattoos than just random walk-ins off the street. They were like, oh, I was coming to find out some artistry. I saw this online. I didn't know anything about it, but I thought I should come and check it out. And so anyway, like that's, I have the first room when you come in. And so I always try to like, if Tiff's not up the front, I'm always trying to pay attention to who's coming in and guide people around.
Yeah,
if I
for
can.
sure.
So.
For sure.
Yeah. That's a blessing and a curse to
You have to be the guy
front
by
shop.
the door. You're the guy at the door.
That's me. I hate it.
You're like,
I
I'm
hate
the
it.
first guy in line.
At least, at least you're there or somebody's there to say something. I went to a couple of shops even today, just walking around, and this guy's working right there in the front door because it's a small New York shop or whatever. And I was just like, hey, I was just, I tattoo up at Hope Gallery. I just wanted to say hi. And they were just like, okay. And they're just working. And I was just like, oh, okay.
Cool, man.
Did it seem like they knew what Old Gallery was?
I don't know if it was.
When Joe was here, he was saying that he walked into a couple of shops also before coming to do the podcast with us. And he was not, I don't want to say offended, but he probably was. But he was also
annoyed.
not surprised. Yeah, he was annoyed that people didn't know who he was.
Right.
And I don't want to make it sound like he's, he thinks of himself as a big deal, but he is a big deal. And it's just funny that people don't know him or the shop.
Especially for like our walk-in client base and whatnot. We're in my opinion, we're friendlier than a lot of shops when people are coming around asking about walk-in stuff. We're inevitably going to be more affordable than a lot of places. And we're going to probably give you a better tattoo in a more efficient timeline. Like you want a name on your wrist? Great. If we got the time, fill out the paperwork, you're going to have a very nice name on your wrist, for $125 in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of shops out there that are like, it could be the entire day to get your name on your wrist, and whether they pay more or not, however it turns out. And anyway, to me, it's like, so they came in and got that at Hope Gallery and they left, and it's just out of their brain. They didn't acknowledge where they were and appreciate the fact that they got probably a better tattoo than they deserved coming in there.
Yeah. Man, I've asked many people, hey, where'd you get that tattoo? And they don't even know. They can't.
They don't know.
They can't remember the artist. They can't remember the name of the shop. It's like, how? How do you permanently mark your body and not know who did it?
I mean, there's so many ways of that to answer that question. I think that in that sense, it really was the tattooer's responsibility to make that experience more memorable.
You're right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's because the tattoo, it was like what you're saying. That's a great example, like something very simple, like a name on the wrist, something so simple that it's like, I can't have my artistic voice in it. I'm just doing my job as a tattooer. What can I sell? The only thing I can sell on this tattoo that's going to make it memorable, it's an amazing experience.
But to me, an amazing experience is a quick and professional tattoo. It's not drinking some tea and banging a gong and lighting some incense and talking about, what's going on and why is this name tattoo important to you? It's like, it's because to me, that's very fake and, very put on. And
well, I think I'm sorry to interrupt you. So I think it comes down to authenticity, right? Like how you feel of like what's authentic to you as the tattooer, and then given on like the the moment, right? Based on like, okay, what's happening, whether it is like, oh, they're out having like a very festive day type of celebration thing. Like, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I'm like, if people are getting like celebratory type of tattoos and I happen to have some booze here, I'm going to offer it to them. I'm like, this is a freaking celebration. We're going to fucking do a shot and then we're going to do this little tattoo.
Yeah.
It's not going to affect it, you know?
Right.
But it's going to add to the experience of like, oh man, this is like hype, you know?
I'm down with that as well. Like I'm a big, you know, I'm
You got to feel the vibe, right?
There
Like
for the vibe too, you know, it to some degree. I am also like, I am a terrible mirror to a vibe. I get a lot of people who are to the point of being a little manic, especially if there's a couple of them in there, and they're sometimes being rude manic because they're just like, they're so excited and this tattoo means so much to them that they're just like, you have to get excited about it, and they're talking 1,000 miles a minute, and they gotta, and I'm like, I cannot get swept away in that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be the exact opposite. We're gonna be very quiet. We're gonna be very calm, and we're gonna say everything at just this meter. And there, you can kind of feel like it reins people in, but you can almost, it regains the power of the situation for the tattoo, which I think is the most important thing, while not being rude. Because there's only two ways to do that. You can talk to them like spooked horses and get them to like calm down, or you can just be like, shut up, sit down. So you know, I think both ways are legitimate.
Steadfast Tattoo Supply, owned and operated by professional working tattoo artist Frankie Porcelli, demanding top performing materials, from the highest quality pigments and medical supplies to tailor-made needles and cartridges with true line weights. Steadfast also specializes in custom machines built from scratch in-house and offers professional or group machine building seminars. Steadfast does everything to keep you and your clients covered. Steadfast, supplies that work as hard as you do.
I always go with like, you know, like just for basic, like freaking, like sales stuff. It's mirror, right? Which we were talking about, mirror. So like, if you're excited, I'm excited. And then I take you to and then we're going to take it where I want you to take the conversation. And then you're like, but now I want you to be focused because this is important. Let's make the right decision on what we're doing and stuff like that. But like, if somebody's super excited and you don't reciprocate that excitement, their excitement is lost.
Yeah. I think that's a touchy subject though sometimes, because when they're super excited and they're talking a mile a minute and they're maybe like just throwing out a bunch of ideas and you try to match that speed, you could have the potential to kind of like overlook something or make decisions too quickly and not make the best decisions too.
Well, that's what I said. It's like you want to match your excitement, but you're still the professional. You still have to do your job.
Right.
So like
that's why I like his idea of like kind of slowing it down
and then
too.
bringing it back down. But I think you can't just go from fast to slow. You got to go fast, and then you got to be like, but we got to slow down.
Yeah.
Because a very excitable client will also, they're very unwilling to listen to like reasonable things about the tattoo. They're like, I want this and it needs to be
Especially when they're surrounded by a group of people.
And it's like, okay, well, how about we do this? We do something that, you know, makes logical sense for a tattoo. And you know, they're very like emboldened that, no, I'm going to have what I want. And it's, I don't know. It's it's a very narrow blade of a knife that you got to walk to, where, because it can turn to them having you perfectly nice and polite, but you again weren't on their level. And so then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the guy was super rude to me. Mm-hmm. He wasn't super rude. He was just telling you something you didn't want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a bummer. But that's, I think, like the crazy part about what we do, right? Like where you have like the person that's getting like $100 tattoo and they want exactly what they want, right? And then you have the person that's getting a $2,000 tattoo and they're like, no, man, I want you to give me what you want.
I like what you do. It's like,
I like what you do. It's like, isn't that wild that like that person's willing to give you way more money to let you do your thing?
Yeah. It's oftentimes that the high profile client is the one who's most lenient.
Yeah. They've already they've looked at your work for a while. They're like, I kind of feel like I don't know what I'm going to get from this person if I let them do their thing.
You would hope. Or they're like, I'm here for a $2,000 tattoo. I need the first person available to put it on me right now. And it's like, you're talking about multiple sessions. This is going to be, why don't we get you set up with the person who's going to do the best job of that? And you're like, no,
I want to sleep today.
You're in the first room. I'm here, and it's like, okay, well,
I think an immediate red flag is the client that goes, money's no object.
Money's no problem.
And again, they have a massive laundry list of ideas, whole sleeve of things, or a reference picture. A reference picture. I want this. And it's like, okay, well, either A, this is a terrible tattoo that you're showing me, and a good version of this tattoo is going to take multiple sessions of several hours or whatever. Or, like this is a fine tattoo. You don't want to just straight up copy it. We could figure something out. And again, I'm a color cartoon guy. I can do a nice black and gray tattoo. I've done so many black and gray tattoos, more than I ever thought I ever would in my entire career. But we have black and gray guys that would do an amazing black. Do you want to talk to them? And they're like, no, I'm here right now. Like, let's just do it. And it's like, okay, and figure out how it's going to go. And they're like, how long do you think it's going to take? And I'm like, 15 hours, 2-3 sessions.
What? And
they're like, oh, wow, so we're not going to do it today. And I'm like, well, I mean, we can start on something, we can do whatever, but it's the strangest thing to me that about the whole thing. But at the same time, I like to think that when I jump into those situations, the tattoos turn out shockingly good by even my own standards.
How do you feel about reworking other people's tattoos?
I would say if I can do something with the tattoo, then I got no issue with it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tattoo for tattoo's sake. Like I've had people that brought tattoos that are like, I need to have this fixed. It's awful. And I'm like, it looks perfectly nice. It's just a tattoo of a certain age. You got it 25 years ago and it looks like it, but the line works good. The black works good. The color and shading, it's all fine. It's just a little bit old. So there's nothing I could reline the whole thing on the outside and it might look a little bit new for, until it heals, but there's no point in going into that, know, and that's sort of that's a weird one too, that to try to get the clients to understand that just because they've been looking at a tattoo for 25 years and disliking it.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's really nice. I don't know what to tell you. So
I recently had a girl email me about fixing up a back piece that she started a couple of years ago. And the artist who started it was here in the city. And then she moved, and the girl was like, "Oh, I'll come back to the city, and whenever I'm back, we'll work on this piece." She never came back.
Yeah.
So this client of mine now has been sitting with this unfinished back piece for, I think she told me she started it close to 10 years ago.
Oh shit.
And the bottom part is still just lined, and then the top part has some color to it, but now the color is like super old.
Faded.
All the line work on the bottom is all blown out and getting really nasty looking. So she went to another artist, asked her if she could fix it, and that girl was like, I do not want to touch this at all. And she recommended me. Mm-hmm. So this girl then emailed me, and it took me about a week to kind of bring the nerves for me to actually email her back.
You're like, oh, I don't want to.
Yeah, because the last time that I fixed an existing tattoo, I told myself, and I actually said it out loud on Instagram, I was like, I am never doing this again.
Yeah.
Because it was such a terrible experience. Not so much the day of, because the girl came in, I told her what I could do, what she should expect. I did exactly what I said. She knew what was going to happen. She walked out of here with a smile, and then she started shit talking me because I didn't do what she wanted.
He's like, it wasn't exactly like what I wanted.
Well, it's not even that. She's like, it's not any better than it was. It's like, well, I mean,
I guess it really depends on what the tattoo was and like what the subject matter and style was.
Right.
Most of the reworks that I've been doing lately are like black and gray pieces that are very light. Like whoever did them initially, like they've healed to where they're 20% gray at the darkest level.
Yeah.
And and
there's
no line work and so and then I usually end up they come to me because I end up doing a new piece, and my pieces are black because I use a lot of black. Mm-hmm. And so then they're like, oh, well, can we go into this? And then it's just like, okay, well, reline it.
Yeah.
And just push the values to where they ought to be. And that's the extent of, and So they're very dramatically look different when I get done with them usually.
Yeah.
So
This new one that I agreed to, which I didn't want to at first, but then I actually was telling my client today about it, and he was like, "Oh, it's your good deed for the year," because I didn't want to do it because I don't want to have my name attached to this piece that I had no say in the design process.
The design, yeah.
Because I mean, at the end of it, it's not going to look like my work, but it's going to be like, "Oh, Matt finished this for me."
Yeah.
And like all the design choices are far from anything that I would ever do. But the reason why I got recommended was because it was a Alphonse Mucha inspired piece. And, you know, this other artist knew that I did kind of like this Art Nouveau kind of style stuff.
Yeah.
So when I looked at it at first, I was like, man, I don't know if I really want to have my name on this, but I'll take on the challenge. And I'm slightly worried about how the end result is going to be because it's so blown out on the bottom. There's really not a whole lot I could do.
Reline that thing, make it bolder.
I'll pull up a picture of it on screen, but
Yeah. I'd love to check it out.
it's so it starts out on top of a fairly decent looking lady head, and then she's got a lion headdress on, and the lion is colored in, but it looks like, I don't know if anybody has kids, they watch Daniel Tiger, like it's just like super cartoony.
Super
funny
Daniel
looking.
Tiger?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And the bottom are two other lady figures, like kind of on her like kidney areas in the back.
Yeah.
And they're so detailed. One's playing a harp. One's got like all these like vertical lines on it and like some almost looks Egyptian styled, like very, very line heavy that all expanded and now it's just like solid black. It's wild.
Okay, so that's kind of
There's a lot of detail in that lower part.
too much detail.
Too much detail.
It sounds like too much detail.
that's sort of some of the other like fix up cover ups that I've been working on. Like a lot of like I did one that was a dragon from the 70s and it was the same kind of thing where it's just like it was just the outline of a dragon with like a little mark for an eye and then it was just green through it. And so I went in and relined, I put some scales in it, relined everything, and it gave it like a fairly big kind of new school looking eye on it. And that's, to me, I sometimes wonder, the clients are always stoked, but I always like, I took this from like a kind of tough, quote unquote, looking 70s tattoo to a definitely cartoony looking, like semi new school looking tattoo. And I like it. And like the client seems to like it. So whether I'm doing that tattoo any favors, I don't know, but it seems to work out.
Yeah. When you're changing something that's been there for a while, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them are from
Gabe's here. We don't have a camera for him.
It's on the floor over there.
For real? Oh,
Yeah.
damn. Why you guys tell me to pop in?
Well, look who decided to show up to work over here.
Welcome, Gabe.
what's up, guys?
All right, I'm back.
What's up, Gabe? What are you working on?
Jumping in. I'm working on a realistic black and gray samurai helmet.
Samurai.
So for all the times that people have heard us complaining about how late we record, today we're recording really early.
We're recording really
And
early.
Gabe is still tattooing.
And I'm tattooing. Usually I'm the early bird and these guys are still hustling, but today it's the other way around. So I decided to pop in real quick.
Yeah,
Nice.
kind of nice to start recording.
Oh, man, I wish we could do this every week.
I love it. I love it. I
I
love
wish
it.
we could do this every week. Oh man, yeah, it is kind of nice.
Yeah.
And maybe
We're not tired.
We're not tired. Yeah, it's gonna
Yeah,
be crazy.
Not 2 or 3 cocktails in. So.
Yeah, right?
We're working on that, guys.
Yeah.
Working on that.
We start early, even before.
So yeah, what are you working on?
The black and gray
Samurai.
helmet.
Samurai. That's right. Yeah, that's looking good.
A little bit of smoky background. It's all going to be black and gray with some like a sprinkling of some cherry blossoms that are going to be
A little sprinkle.
in color.
Sprinkle
a little
it.
sprinkle.
Yeah.
He looked really cool.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah. We're discussing, have we destroyed potential pieces of tattoo history by reworking old pieces?
Oh, yeah. That's something we think about all the time, right? We're like, well, you know, we're
Up where I'm at, I see so many pieces from Buddy Mott up in Rhode Island from the 70s,
Yeah.
which again are my favorite things. People walk in with like an old Tasmanian devil and are just like, I was just thinking about covering this up, and I'm just like, no, like just let's put a new Tasmanian devil like pointing at this one, you know, something. Hey, check this out.
Yeah, that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize is when they have old tattoos like that, it is a part of history, and covering that up is like a sin, right? You don't want to.
It feels bad.
more times than not, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But
Or I'll like, let's restore it to its glory if they must. But 9 times out of 10, I'm like, why do you want to cover that up? Because I
'Cause
think
it's
I think
old.
it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's old.
It's so cool.
I mean, I guess it's one thing. It's one thing if it's like some no-name tattooer, but sometimes like these people have like really classic,
Really
tattoos.
classic.
Yeah,
really cool
absolutely.
pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to them, it just
They don't
got this
know,
old
yeah.
thing. I don't really care about it that much. You know, they don't have the same kind of value in that piece of history.
Man, how would you feel if someone came in and was like, oh man, I got this old tattoo. I don't really like it. Could you fix it up for me? And then you were like, all right, yeah, whatever. And then after you're done, you're like, by the way, who did this? And it's like, oh, you know, Paul Booth. It was like one of Paul Booth's original, like one of the first ones.
Oh man, I'd be like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah. This is one of Paul Rogers' tattoos. You know what?
You would hope you could identify a Paul Booth tattoo though more than some of the other ones.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what I was
true,
gonna
of course.
say. Like, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's stages. I feel like in almost every tattooer's career where you're doing work that still doesn't have like your voice in it yet, right? So if it's like Paul Booth before that was there, I'm like, whatever. I mean, it's
If it was one of his first.
even if it was one of his first, but if it was just like, you know, freaking what were we talking about before it was anything Paul Booth
Yeah.
branded, you know, just a rando Reaper like what we had back there. Just a rando Reaper. I'm like, oh, Paul Booth, this is at a shop where he was starting out. I'm like, that's cool and all, but like,
That or like in my instance where it's like people will come in with a Paul Booth tattoo and be like, I was thinking about adding on to this and putting something up above it.
Yeah.
oh
And
yeah,
it's
that's
like,
worse.
I'm like, you know,
That is worse.
You see all of my, you're surrounded by Hanna-Barbera characters in here. And it's like, we can certainly find one. Like, let's flip through some, books or something and find something crazy, and and it will be a good tattoo. But like, I'm not on Paul's level,
Yeah.
like mentally, not even tattooing wise. Like that, I have a couple of the guys. I had a guy come in. He was like, I want like a creature. He had like various skulls and different things. It was just a random walk in. He was like, I was thinking about. He goes, I'm just in town for a couple of weeks. I was thinking about getting some kind of creature on my arm here, and I was like, we'll find one. Like, we'll figure it out for you. I said, if you got more time, you should come back, because like creatures live in my coworkers' heads, like Shane and Joe Santiago's head. They'll put one on there that's awesome. But he was like, well, I'm just here for right now. So I'm like, all right, we're going to stretch a little bit today and figure it out. But
Many years ago, I had a client come in from out of state. I don't remember where he was coming from, but he was like, oh, I'm only going to be here for a day. Can you do, like, he was asking for like this kind of creepy lady head up on his collar area. I'm like, all right, yeah, cool. That'd be quick. So I did it. And then he was, oh man, I really love this. I'm going to come back and add more to it. I'm like, all right, I guess that's pretty cool. I didn't design it to look like it should have anything else attached to it, but yeah, we'll figure something out. And then I haven't seen him for years after that. And then eventually he came back to the shop and he showed me, he was like, oh, I went somewhere else. And he wound up attaching like this whole thing all out of his body, like his whole torso. Like, he added like a whole creature's body to this head. And it was really cool looking. And I wasn't offended, but I could see how someone would be really pissed off. Like, you went somewhere else and added to my design after telling me that you were going to come to me and
add it.
and me finish
Oh
it.
my goodness. Yeah.
I didn't care, but I could see that being pretty dicey.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
that people ask me too when they're because mine are usually bangers. I do a lot of one shot kind of things. I've been really into like trying to do stickers and different things so that they have, it's just like you're in, you're out, and it's a one. And they're like, well, would it be okay if I go get tattooed by somebody else? I'm like, yeah, like that's as long as they're at my level or better, I'm usually perfectly good. Like if you go get a terrible tattoo and then we're just like, hey, look what I got there interacting with yours, then I'm just like, that's cool.
Let me pose this question, because like Matt Buck asked me this. He follows this girl named Buck Pit and Bunny. I've seen some of her posts, but he said that she finished a tattoo. This person just did the outline and then she did it, finished it, and then that tattooer like commented on that tattoo, like, you could have tagged me at least like on it.
Well, the whole story with that was
what was it?
The client who got the tattoo originally wanted a fine line tattoo.
Right.
And the original artist did it too bold and she didn't want him to finish it. So she went somewhere else to get it finished.
Okay.
And when the new artist posted it, she told the whole story. And not that she was like talking bad about the original artist, but
Yeah.
did not paint that original artist in a good light.
Right.
And then the original artist, like, you could have tagged me. Like, what is this shit?
Yeah.
Bro,
when
why
I
would
first
you?
saw that,
My goodness.
was it too bold or was it appropriately bold? Is my question. And then because she was like, "Oh, look, this wasn't," and she sort of phrased it was like, "This wasn't the way that the person wanted it," and
Yeah.
so I did it. And then I was like, I bet if that person had kept going, it would look a lot like what you just did. You know?
Yeah,
It's-
probably.
Exactly.
So it's sometimes weird. I was like, and if a client's just be like, okay, I'm not enjoying this, I'm out. I've actually told several clients when they've come to me with bad tattoos, like I was like, at no point you were like, I think I'm just going to go. You just sat through that whole thing, but
It's hard to leave a chair, I feel like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is hard.
I mean, I've had that, and this sounds crazy, but I've had that happen in haircuts.
oh yeah.
Or like, I'm go to a new place and like midway, I'm like, I'm losing faith on this guy. Like he's doing, like he does one little side of a blend. I'm like,
Yeah. You're like, nope.
this ain't gonna be good, dude. It's the idea to just walk away like while he's still going makes me feel terrible, dude.
Yeah.
So I could only imagine with like a tattoo. Like I'm like, I'm just gonna have to eat this haircut. It's gonna be fucking shitty, dude. But I'm gonna fucking like,
Oh, that's the worst.
I don't know how
it's
that
the
feels.
worst.
I have to take my glasses off to get my haircut, and I'm so blind that even though I'm looking in the mirror, I cannot see a goddamn thing that's happening. So I don't know what my haircut looks like until he's done and I put my glasses back on.
Working with the king of hair, I try to be a little bit on point. And I went to like a guy, it was like, I want like a classic kind of slick back cut. And he was like, oh, your hair's too short. He cut it and it was just sticking out the sides like Grandpa Munster. Too short, grow it out, come back, and then we can do like a nice proper cut. And I was like, awesome. I let my hair grow for like 9 months. It was like 80s fringe all down around my ears. And so I went in and he cut it again so short. and told me the exact same thing.
No way,
And I was
dude.
like, oh, God.
Man, come
All right.
on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's so good. He did the same guy. Just gotta throw it out again.
My goodness.
Oh, that's good,
What else is new?
man.
Well, so Matt was talking about living close to shops and how nice that is. And
Yeah.
it made me think of a story from back in the day when I started tattooing in South Dakota. And the second shop that I was at in South Dakota, the owner of the shop wore shorts every day of the year. And it gets cold in South Dakota in the winter. And he would roll in wearing shorts and a t-shirt
Oh, my
because
goodness.
he lived exactly 1 mile from the shop. And he was like, I have a heated garage. I start my truck in the heated garage, heated truck, walk out. I drive 75 miles an hour nonstop. I pull out of the garage and don't touch the brakes until I pull into the shop and I walk into the shop. And so like, I always thought that was great. I was like, I'm going to wear shorts, even though I don't live as close to the shop, but I'm going to try to wear shorts as much as I can. And I don't know, this story's going nowhere.
No, it's okay.
Mark the edit point.
I was gonna say he's just one of those guys that those guys that their legs don't get cold.
Right.
They could be wearing a hoodie, everything, but they just have like shorts on and Birkenstocks.
they don't put their
Nope.
their doors back on the Jeep
Yeah.
like in the wintertime. Still wearing shorts.
But I've also been very fortunate to be able to work real close to my shops. The shop that I worked at in Salem was a block and a half away from my place. And so I was always the guy that would have to, whenever the boss would call me and be like, I think I left the sign out in the yard. You got to go put it back in the shop. So
Yeah.
go put it back in. And then I live very close to Hope. So that's nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's got to be such a nice feeling to be able
Absolutely.
to like, oh shit, I left something at my house. I got to go run back and get it.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, you just go.
Dude.
Yeah.
Me and Zoe were just talking about like a couple of days ago. I was like, man, if I could just, I live right outside. So if I could just move my Yonkers apartment and move it right like a couple of blocks away from the shop. Heaven. But I said like the one thing that living around here, if you're in one of the older buildings and you're in like a third, fourth floor, I'm like, God damn, groceries suck. Like,
No elevator.
no elevator, none of that, none of the new modern things. Like I'd have to be in a modern building with like an elevator, with like, we were talking about like I lived in a loft, when everybody wants to have these artist lofts. I had one of those. It looked cool as fuck, but the draft that would go through the bricks in the middle of wintertime, it was insane. You're like, I have to wear a jacket inside right now because the wind is blowing so hard that it's like coming through the bricks and it's freezing. And it would cost so much money to keep it warm in the winter and then to keep it cool in the summer. It was like insane. Cool artist experience. But it's like, no, this is not the way to go.
Not a long-term thing.
No, definitely not a long-term thing. But like living close is, it would be perfect. But
That's a topic, I guess. So, you're here in New York. There are how many shops you think, half a mile from here?
right now, I'd say at least 6, maybe 6
Right.
within half a mile from
What,
me.
a half a
mile?
half a square mile?
I mean, how many blocks is a half a mile?
I don't know. I just guessed.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. 8.
I was gonna say even more.
Even more than that, if you say 8 blocks.
But so when I first started tattooing, when I first got tattooed back in South Dakota had at the time maybe 4 shops in the entire state.
Wow.
And first time we went to get tattooed, we drove 3 hours to get down to the where it was to get tattooed. And when I first started apprenticing, I was driving 45 minutes each way, and it's insane. And
It's rough.
and South Dakota hasn't changed very much, I guess is my point about that. Like South Dakota is amazing to me because it's you would think with the internet and whatnot there. I gave it a Google before I came just to check, and there's still only like the city of Sioux Falls, which is one of the biggest cities, has maybe a dozen shops in the city.
Yeah.
And then the rest of eastern South Dakota has maybe a dozen shops scattered across it.
Wild.
I said this on Joe's podcast. It's what I find amazing about it is they're probably amazing tattooers.
Yeah.
A handful of these, but no one's ever heard of them because they just don't ever interact even with other shops, let alone any, they do their thing. They promote locally and people know them, and maybe they keep an Instagram or whatnot, but most likely don't even do that. And
Yeah.
and
They don't need to.
Right. I just think people ought to shine a little bit more of a spotlight there on the Midwest and start doing some talent hunting out there, because I think there's some amazing things out there. So I got some hometown pride. So
some hometown heroes.
and whatnot.
Man, I spoke to some people like, back in when I went to do the Off the Map tattoo convention in what's it called? The Paradise Gathering.
Yeah.
And all the people that were from the smaller towns, like they were like, oh yeah, business is freaking great this year. I'm like, get out of here, really? They're like, oh, the guys in the city, they're like, oh, it's slower than normal. I'm like,
Yeah.
but when you're in a place where there's like, oh, there's not like 6, 7 shops within your square mile, it will change the way it feels.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like, I think that's one of the good things about.
And I
going
think
out
there's
to a place
still
like that.
shops that are very flash driven. I think that's what I liked about being in South Dakota, and still whenever I haven't been back in years, but when I do get to go back and pop into a shop, it feels like you're stepping back 15 or 20 years. It's still very much a flash racks and picking stuff off the wall kind of vibe. And it's
cool.
I like that.
Me too.
I think
I like that
that's-
too.
Me too.
It's a test of a good tattooer to say, I do a bunch of different things, and people, whatever, they poo-poo flash or whatnot. But I would say that somebody who could take a piece of flash from somebody and make it look like the piece of flash is, it's got some skills over somebody that's like, oh, this I do what I do with my
Yeah.
machine, and that's the ending and beginning. And if you ask me for anything else, like, there's the door. So
Yeah. I think I like when a tattoo artist can handle from a 3-liner to a bold line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't limit yourself, guys. Don't be the guy who like, I do only fine line or I only do bold lines.
Yeah.
You should be able to do everything.
When you
I only know how to cook eggs. I'm only good at breakfast. I ruin everything else.
eggs are the
Like
hardest
that
things
sucks,
to cook.
right? You know what?
You talk to
All
chefs.
jokes aside.
Yeah.
All jokes aside. It's a very it's a thin line. Once you
It's the
cross
test of
over.
making an egg correctly.
That's right.
when you close your eyes and you envision the quintessential tattoo shop,
Yeah.
what does it look like?
Oh man, it's really hard for me to not think about this shop as
This shop here?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Like that's like what I like. The only thing that I would add to this shop here would be like flash racks. And if I wish I had we had more space to make a bigger like browse area.
Yeah, like the front area where it's just like but just tons of stuff for clients to just browse.
Exactly.
Look around,
like a
go through
big
flash
browse area,
racks,
which is something that's really hard in a shop, like in a city, where you're like, okay, where do we have like, I wish it wasn't like so much where people come in, they're like, oh, you have Flash? Or like, oh, check out these books. I wish it was like, yeah, check it all out. It's like, check out this whole room full of Flash, you know?
Which that shop Brass City where that Bug Pin Bunny works, that is the Flash shop. It is floor to ceiling in there.
Yeah, see, that's what I think of. I think of not so much racks, but just Flash on the wall, like perfectly lined up. You don't see any wall at all. It's like every piece of Flash is just butt up right against each other.
Yeah.
Floor to ceiling, just different designs.
I would imagine
the black and white checkered floor. Like that's what I.
Yeah.
I would imagine being surrounded by so much Flash that a lot of people are just compelled to like, oh well, I had this idea to get tattooed, but
look at that.
Check that skull with the rose right there. Like, I can see that happening a lot, and especially nowadays. You know, I'm starting to be surprised because, like, for instance, in our shop, we have art and we have Flash as well, but you know, we're not drowning in it. But you still have more and more. I'm starting to hear, and I know you guys hear it while you guys are working as well. You guys have any Flash?
Bro, that ain't
It's making a comeback.
It is.
Like,
but that always kind of like when people come in and they ask, do you have any Flash? When there's clearly Flash up. Like there's Flash on the walls right now. We obviously do. So I don't know if they're like requesting for like,
but I think
artist books with Flash.
I think the difference is like the way that I'm describing it and how we have it are very different. Like we have Flash, but it's kind of scattered around. It's kind of intermingled with other pieces of artwork.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of just not seeing it. I think that's the problem.
And I sometimes worry that people see Flash nowadays, modern people, and they think, well, I don't want any of this. Because clearly this stuff exists already.
People already did this.
Yeah, and I need to have the thing that nobody gets, but it's something that everybody gets, but it's not ever going to be on a Flash sheet because nobody wants to see it anymore in the tattoo community. So
yeah, I want the one tattoo that nobody gets, yo. It's like, you know, like all good right here, and then it's evil as it's coming down, bro. And guess what? On the other side is gonna be old color, and this guy's side right is gonna be old black and gray. Nobody has that.
Like the you know, I don't really know. I don't know what I want in particular. I kind of wanted to get like somebody with a vibe, see what they want to do. Like, was there something you really wanted to do? And I'm like, yeah, I got a whole book of like, what do you think of this here? No, that's not really what I was thinking. You know, I was like, okay, well, I have Flash books. I have sketchbooks from tattooers. Anything like this kind of piquing your fancy? No, it's not really what I was thinking. I was like, well, what are you thinking? I'm like, no, I'm not really thinking anything. I just want to do something that you think would be cool. And I'm
Can't you just draw it? And if you like it, I'll get it.
Right.
Let me see.
Like, so you do have an idea in your head. Just verbalize it. And sometimes they don't want to because it's like, well, I was thinking about like a lion with a pocket watch.
Like, it'll be a really cool idea and totally different. Just throw like a crown on it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And make the eyes blue.
Yes, he's a king. He's a king of the jungle.
Make the eyes blue. Oh man.
Oh, guys, I gotta go. I got my appointment upstairs. His leg's probably bleeding right
bleeding.
now. Yeah, so it's been a pleasure to jump in real quick.
Cool.
Usually,
Go finish that tat.
exactly.
Just finish the tag.
Gotta make money, guys. Peace.
This is Gabe's.
Later, gentlemen.
Later.
Well then.
Well then, man. But I would love to make a big like Flash area, but space.
Yeah, it's tough here.
It's space. You know, trying to have enough space for tattooers, and you know, when especially here, like the cost per square foot is so much. You want to try to get the most out of it, and you're like, oh man, am I going to dedicate this whole piece of space for just the people to walk in and just browse? And
it sort of changes the vibe of the shop, you know, like most of the Flash that I think of for Flash is, you know, American traditional sort of Flash. That's the most prolific sort of Flash. Because you don't want, I think if you've hung up a bunch of Cherry Creek Flash, as awesome as it is from, you know, that early mid to late 90s vibe in the shop, it doesn't hit home. It doesn't hit very hard
Right.
sometimes. And then you're like, okay, so we'll hang up a bunch of American traditional, but we're not really an American traditional shop.
Yeah.
You know, we want to do this and that. And so then it's like, okay, so we'll clear this way out and we'll put a half sleeve or a back piece art piece up here of Japanese or a traditional thing or something. And then that all of a sudden, okay, now we don't have flash there. And then it's like, we'll take flash out over here. We'll put that over there too. And then it's like, okay, we don't have any flash up in the shop.
Yeah, and if you put up like, a really nice like multi-session piece like up for flash, and somebody's like, oh, I love this, I want to get this. You're like, actually, that's gonna be like 3 sessions, so you can't just get it today.
Right.
Like, and they're like, oh. It's kind of like, then that's the idea of flash. Flash is supposed to be like, oh, wham, bam, get it, doom.
Yeah.
You got it. It's done. Get a cool, quick tattoo.
Do you guys have a dedicated photo area to take pictures of work?
We don't. No. That and if you look at my Instagram, hopefully people are doing that after this podcast. I am the worst photographer ever of all time. I'm theoretically going to repaint my room so that it's less yellow, and hopefully that improves some of my photos.
Guys, go look at Adam's Instagram and tell him this photo sucks.
Yeah. You don't have to tell me twice. But at the same time, there's been a lot of discussion about old tattoo magazines and whatnot, and I love flipping through an old, late '90s, early 2000s magazine, because those photos are terrible, and the tattoos are pretty bad.
Yeah,
and it's like if someone walked in looking for a job with these tattoos in a book, I think everyone would laugh them out of the shop. But these were the best of the best for a while there. So I look at it that way. I'm like, I'm just taking '90s photos of my tattoos, and that's I'm this far away from just having a Polaroid. And with that, so
that could be your shtick.
That actually could be a shtick.
Yeah.
Even if you took even if you go online and you what you post is just a Polaroid on a floor on the floor of the tattoo, and
that's cool. That's a good idea.
That would be cool.
I should. That's what we're doing from now on.
All right.
Yeah, that actually would be cool.
Yeah. I just recently bought a photography backdrop off of Amazon. It pops open to 5x7, and then you could fold it up, and it comes into maybe a 24-inch circle. But it's got it's got a pretty stiff frame, but it can obviously maneuver, and you can bend it to fold it back up into the circle. But when it pops open, it's nice and stiff. And unlike a curtain backdrop where it has some wrinkles in it or something that you might have to iron out, this is always going to be nice and smooth. And I took a couple of pictures of a back piece that I finished about a year ago using this thing, and it looked really good. But I can very easily see how quick it would be very redundant, just always using the same background over and over again. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm going to use it, and everyone here is welcome to use it too. But I don't know how a dedicated space for taking pictures of your tattoos, it might just become too much after a little bit.
If it's only I think if I had that, I would only just want the option to have a black background, white background.
Yeah, but even still,
really
that becomes repetitive too.
Yeah.
I kind of, as much as I like when I see my portfolio on Instagram, for example, I like everything looking the same. Specifically, if I'm taking a picture of a forearm or a calf, I'll have them lay on, or not lay, but I'll put the body part on my gigantic armrest.
Yeah.
Lay it out with a bunch of paper towels so it has that white background. And I'll even take the picture at the same angle. I'll angle everything the same every time. And I like when I have a whole 9 photos of that and they all look the same when you're looking at the screen in one shot.
Yeah.
That looks cool to me. But at the same time, I feel like a background might be too much to have that constantly the same all the time.
Then I don't know. When you look at the whole thing, everything looks too
I don't know.
continuous.
It's hypocritical of myself, but I don't know.
Well, and I mean, it's a regular discussion of how much touching is too much touching for photos. And sometimes even just that, it's even just how much posing and background and lighting. I like to think that when I take a photo, the client's going to say whatever. The client's going to like it. People will see it. It seems to be fine. Tattooers should be able to look at even a bad photo and see a good tattoo.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what's important. And I know that there are far more tattooers out there who will pick apart a really nice photo of a tattoo to try to find out what's wrong with this tattoo that this photo looks so good.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being that's a fine tattoo. And we know because the photo is just a snapshot and nobody cares.
Yeah.
So it's it's a more honest. So
I think it's interesting what you said about like looking at pictures from back in, any of the pictures that I took before a filter to me look terrible now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, before, I'm like, oh, this picture looked really good. I was stoked about this photo. I'm like, I could see the tattoo clearly. It looks good. But now if I see a picture that has any sort of glare on it, I'm just like, oh, what a terrible photo I took.
I've been rewatching a show that was on country music television back in 2012, 2013 called Tattoo Titans.
I remember that.
That was a great show. And I can't believe the History Channel didn't like bring it back during the big rush of tattoo TV competition shows, because unlike Ink Master, where it wasn't weeks and weeks and it was very little personality of the tattooer, it was like a Forged in Fire where it was like 4 people, and by the end we got one person, he gets 10 grand and takes off. And but even that, it's the same kind of thing. So it's from 2012, 2013, and they're like, let's look at your tattoo. And they put it up on the screen, big glare down the middle of it, and it's like bloody and red, and it's good. And it's like, wow, that is something, right?
Yeah, like I can see it.
This kind of reminds me of a thing that I've been seeing a lot lately, that there have been a couple of posts talking about, if you look at TV shows and you look at movies, specifically like cinema, if you look at movies, the way that they're shot back in like the 90s, early 2000s, when the clarity wasn't there, they didn't have 4K video, and the way that everything was shot had this like movie feel to it. Like everything looked good.
Yeah.
And now that, because the shots are so much like crisper, it doesn't have that like cinematic feel to it anymore. And a lot of people they'd rather the grainier, not so well lit movies, like the photography, the way that it looked back then compared to now. And I don't know if it's chalking up to like too much post-production or whatnot, but I wonder if that kind of translates to the way that we take our pictures now. If people think that we're like putting too much post-production into it,
the overly digitized looking look of
I mean, I know that there's a big argument for not doctoring your pictures at all. Don't use a CPL and just take the picture and let the tattoo look the way that it's supposed to look in real life. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but there is something to be said about the way tattoo pictures and the way that movies and TV shows used to look compared to the way it is now.
I think if you take like the old, think of like an old tattoo, anything from like the 70s, 80s, right? Things that were taken with like just a camera, like those tattoos look very different. Taken with those things made people look smoother.
Yeah.
Everything looks smoother, a little tiny bit of grain to kind of just flatten it out, give it like a nice balance kind of look to it, as opposed to like now a digital photo that captures every little bit of detail change or on everything. One
of the things that people were picking up on the most was like this style of, so they were specifically talking about It's Always Sunny. And they were saying, if you watch It's Always Sunny from episode 1, season 1 to whatever, I think they're like season 18 right now, you could see every season or every couple of seasons where they're upgrading their equipment, they're upgrading their cameras, lighting, they've got a bigger budget. Even like the actors themselves, like you can, they spent some money on their Botox, they spent some money on their fillers and whatever. And like they're progressively changing everything about it to keep up with the times, but their characters are still the same. Like the story is still the same, and the grainy footage and like their shoddy look is a part of their character, and that's what made it look and feel good.
Yeah.
And now, because like everything's so crispy and the lighting's better and they just look like they've got so much plastic surgery and they spent a lot of money. That doesn't match the feel and the vibe of the show and the feel and the vibe of the characters. So that, I don't know, that's just something to think about. Like with your tattoos, if your style of tattoos doesn't match the style of photography that you're taking, maybe consider that. Maybe, change the way
to adapt things. That sounds good. Something that I thought was like super clever. I don't know if you guys have watched the show Severance. It's on Apple. Incredible show. But something that they did to kind of shift between, there's a lot of like going back in time kind of scenes, right? Like, what do they call that? Let's say it's called a throwback for me. So like they go back in time and show like how things that were happening before the show is in the present, right? And those scenes that are from like, oh, when they first met, right? They shot those scenes in film. So they have that grainy film look.
Yep.
And then when you go back and see what modern time is happening, it looks digital, like, you know, super digitized. And you're like, oh shit, you can clearly tell which one is like the other one feels more dreamy, more like, you know, surreal.
Yeah.
Because even like the way that the light hits everything and the way it captures light looks a little bit more gloomy than like a super sharp, you know, kind of lens on that. And I thought that was really cool. But that's true. Even combining both, like in this situation, it could be like a pretty cool way to show a tattoo.
Yeah.
You know, even a combination of like some film videos that look a little bit more grainy and then have a couple of little crisp up close shots of your tattoo so you can see like what it really close looks like now.
Would be nice. That I as far as why I don't take better photos is sometimes, you know, the client's been there for an hour and a half or whatever to be like, okay, we need to wait 20 minutes to let this bleed out a little bit. And then we're going to wipe it down. And then we got to have a little photo shoot for 35, 40 minutes after that. And sometimes people are just ready to go, you know? So I stand them up over against the wall and get a nice photo and out the door we go.
Oh man.
Hour and a half is nothing.
Yeah. Like hour and a half. You've been here for a whole hour and a half? Well, that's it. No. I mean, I feel like sometimes like that, I use that time, like after we finished, to kind of bond with the person I've been tattooing, you know? Like we talk about like, dude, you just finished this. Great, you know? And just chill, talk a little bit, you know, and then I finally get the tattoo. After like their adrenaline has finally come down a little bit from getting tattooed, because I feel like as soon as you're done, you're just like, oh, you get the guys that are like, oh, you know, stretching their arms and shit like that, you know, after they're done. I'm like, okay, cool. Now we're done. Let's hang out for a little bit and let's grab a good photo. So I feel like if you don't grab that good photo that day, dude, it might as well, it's gone forever.
Someone commented on our post today when you were talking about tattooing that guy's eyelids.
Yeah.
They were like, if there's no photo of it, it didn't happen.
It did.
I don't believe you.
I don't believe you, dude. It's gone forever. That's it. It's gone forever.
It's so funny.
That's what I think about our work, though. It's like, man, we've spent so many hundreds of hours, dude, like, you know, doing tattoos. And I'm like, man, if this was in like on canvas or you would have did a Sistine Chapel by now, bro.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, dude. You did the roof of a freaking giant basilica right now.
There's a lot of hour work walking around.
Yeah. Like if you thought of all the hours you put into it, it's like, fuck. Where's all that at?
And they all remember that they got tattooed by you.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. I try my best. I try to be memorable when people get tattooed by me.
Man, I feel so bad when people remember me and I don't remember them. I had one girl, she was working in like the throughway rest stop at a McDonald's. And I popped in one day on my drive home. I think I was like coming home from skiing upstate, and I popped in one of these throughway rest stops, and she was like, "Oh my God, Matt!" I'm looking at her like, "What?" And then Nicole's with me. I'm like, "I have no idea." And Nicole's like,
"Who is this, Matt?"
I was like, "I have no idea who this girl is." She was like, "No, you tattooed me. Check it out." I was like, I didn't even remember the tattoo. Usually when I see the tattoo, I was like, "Oh yeah." I didn't even remember the tattoo. I was like, whispering under my breath to Nicole's like, "I don't think I did that." But she was very convinced that I did it. She saw me. I'll never forget that. That was horrible.
Oh, man. I've had that happen too. Where people are like, "Oh, you tattooed me." I'm like, "Let me see the tattoo." And then they show me the tattoo. I'm like,
then you remember.
Yes.
Always remember the tattoos.
I
enjoy when someone tells me that they saw one of my tattoos on somebody and like flag them down and be like, "Oh, Adam did that tattoo." And because lots of times, like I typically, because I do so much like flash and different, like, I don't think that my work is necessarily like identifiable from across the room because it's just tattooing.
Yeah.
And so it's always nice to be like, "Oh, I saw one of your tattoos on somebody." And
That's sweet.
cool. Stop and talk with them.
That's a good feeling.
And I think people love that. People love that when they're just like recognizing it's like, "Did this person do that?" And they're like, "Yes." They're stoked.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little treat.
Because that makes them feel like they got a good tattoo.
Absolutely.
This is good enough that somebody recognizes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, "Hey, is that a Cybertruck?" Yes, it is.
I freaked some guy out in Aruba that I recognized the sleeve that Orrin Hurley did.
Yeah.
And I came up to him. He was staying in the same hotel as me. I saw this guy in the lobby of the hotel. And I went up to him. I was like, Oren did that tattoo, didn't he? And he looked at me and was like, how the fuck did you know that?
How'd you know that?
We're in a totally different Who the hell are you? Like, I know Oren. He was so stoked.
For sure. I feel like it's freaking rad. How many days a week do you tattoo? How many days are you in the shop?
I'm in the shop. I'm off Sundays and Wednesdays typically, and then I'm at the shop usually 12 to 6 at minimum. The shop's open 12 to 7. I always tell people we're here at least until 12 to 6, so that literally everyone doesn't come in at 6:30.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, it says you're open till 7. That's when we're going in. Is at 6:30.
6 feels early to me.
Well, and we're open later than some places.
Yeah.
A lot of the shops around us, like some of the shops around us are open like 10 to 6 or whatever. Like people are getting their work done in the day and bouncing.
Man, that seems to be the way, dude.
The only reason why 12 to 6 feels weird is because like anybody that works from 9 to 5, they're at work.
Right.
Like most people work 9 to 5. It's like that's their hour. So it's like I would either like start later so then they can come like after work and then they have between like 5 and 9 maybe to like.
You know what though?
get
I think
tattooed.
that there are far fewer people that work 9 to 5 than society has led you to believe.
Really?
I think so.
I think a lot of people work like 3 to 10 or whatever, like there's retail people and whatnot. And
Yeah.
so my noon appointments are usually pretty busy. Try to get people in and out before they got to go to work,
Yeah.
or they come in at 5 and we try to squeeze them in
right after.
before we take off. And that's the upside of doing bangers, doing as primarily as a career and doing hour-long tattoos.
Yeah.
Is that it's like, okay, I'll make time, get you in, we'll figure it out, or you can call same day and there's a good chance you can get in depending on what it is. And if it's more than that, I always say, listen, you got to take a half day. Like your tattoo is worth taking a half day off of work so you can book an appointment and come in and get that, as opposed to being like, can we start an 8-hour tattoo at 5:30, 6 o'clock?
Right.
And then I'll come in at 5:30 every 10 days to like until we get it finished. And it's like,
Oh, yeah. Can we get an hour and a half?
yeah.
20 times.
Right.
No.
But think about like what I just said. You and I, and I'm sure you do too, but like we do pretty much big pieces almost every day.
Yeah.
And we're starting in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And we're working on all these different people. They're not working.
Most of those people are taking time off.
You think so?
Yeah. Most of the people
I don't know if my clients are.
take time off so they can get
Your
tattooed
clients are
those
just
days.
independently wealthy.
I think they just work different times and different days.
Some of them like work, from home and
They got like a oscillating fan just moving their mouth
Moving their
while
mouth,
they're
like-
getting tattooed.
Well, yeah, you know what? I definitely have had a lot of people come in. They bring their laptop with them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm on the clock right now," and they'll like pretend like they're working.
They're
They'll-
double dipping.
Let me just keep as long as I keep my laptop open,
It's
then
fine.
They'll think I'm
yeah, I've
working.
had that happen too. It's kind
Yeah.
of funny. I'm like, wow, that's a sweet gig.
That's funny. Well, I mean, we're about an hour and a half.
Yeah,
in
we're
right now.
running it. So, guys, we should totally go check out the art show over.
Oh, that's
at,
right. Yeah, what time is it right now? 8:30 right now. So it just started.
It just started at the Hustle Butter.
I didn't ask how long the show is up.
I don't know how long it's up, but
Yeah.
guys, make sure you just go check out the.
What is it? I don't even know what it is.
The guys from Hungary?
From
Don't
Hungary.
quote me on that, but I was there a little earlier and got a sneak peek of it. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of like pop culture kind of realism, surrealist kind of paintings,
Oh, cool.
and very reasonably priced, according to Kevin.
Okay.
So it's art priced to sell. So if you're in the market for art, it's the thing to go check out.
Cool. So go check out the Hustle Butter location.
Yeah, maybe, just maybe, I'll bring over a little portable DJI. And
You got your glasses?
And I got my glasses too. I got my Meta glasses, and maybe we can get a little bit of footage while we're there. And we can show it. We won't know if this happens or not, but maybe you will because it'll be rolling right about now. So, anyways, thank you so much for hanging out with us,
guys.
man.
Hopefully
Yeah, that was
this
fun.
was a fun conversation. I didn't bring much to the table as being like a fancy famous person, and I didn't even say anything to get canceled. So.
There's still like 30 seconds.
All right.
No, Adam, thank you so much. And like, we're gonna roll up to the show together. We'll check it out and see what's
Yeah.
up.
Cool.
Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate you hanging out with us every week. And like I said, please like this video.
Oh, wait,
it really
hold on.
does help a lot. And I think do we have some Patreon supporters?
I believe so. Hold on. Here we go. I wish I always had this locked up and ready to go.
While you do that,
Oh, here we go. New Patreon member, Mike Bach.
Mike Bach.
Mike Bach, thank you very much for supporting the show. We appreciate it. If you want to be like Mike, check out patreon.com/honest tattooer and become a Patreon supporter.
Yeah, definitely be like Mike. And guys, thank you for hanging out with us again, and we'll see you next week. Take
Bye.
care.